third time this week. We are coming to you not live. This is Will and Jordan back for a episode of Load the Box. We wanted to talk about some quarterbacks tonight. Quarterback is always a hot button topic in the Minneapolis, St. Paul, and surrounding areas and states because Kirk Cousins, as good as he is, as dad as he is, he's got a lot of haters. He's also got a lot of fans. And some would say he's underachieved in Minnesota. Some would say he's done just fine. So we find ourselves at another crossroads after 2022 where you're looking at a good quarterback, a four-time Pro Bowl quarterback. But, objectively, the team has only won one playoff game since he's been here. People are going to have a bad taste in their mouth from the Giants game on that last play. All those things. He's only got 1 year left on his contract. That's probably the most important thing, though, Jordan, because as good as Kirk's been, all these different things, he's getting into his mid-30s. He's got a $35 million contract and just 1 year left on it. So the Vikings are sort of at this inflection point where you can either extend him, which I just wrote an article on VikingsTerritory.com arguing for why they should extend him by a very small margin, just a couple of years. But you could also let his contract play out one more year and go get the next quarterback of the future in the draft. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about some potential options for the Vikings to go get in the draft with their 5 picks as they sit today. So Jordan, who is the first quarterback kind of realistic here? We're not going to talk about CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, any of those guys. Tell me a realistic quarterback that you think the Vikings can and should pursue.
I think that I want to preface everything I'm about to say with the following kind of save my hind end things. Number one, none of these guys should be taken in the third round, second round, or first round. These are all like fourth round and later guys, I think. Number two, I made a statement last week, I think it was, about how this is, I think I said it about wide receivers. Like I said, this isn't, you're going to hear people say this isn't a deep wide receiver class, and that I thought it was. I thought there were a lot of good wide receivers. For quarterbacks, there are 4 quarterbacks that are going to go in the top 10, and then there's 50 feet of crap, and then there's Tanner McKee, and then there's the rest of the guys. But I do think there's some salvageable parts, and so all of these guys, I'm assuming we have extended Kirk Cousins, and these guys are, maybe we have a Russell Wilson in the making of a mid-round guy who really picks it up, can play with a good defense and a solid running back and yada yada, all that stuff. So first quarterback I want to talk about because I think he is the most intriguing to me. Tell me if you've heard this one before on the Load the Box channel. Out of BYU, the Brigham Young guys, Jalen Hall. I absolutely love me some Jalen Hall. I think he doesn't have the same crazy arm talent that Zach Wilson has, but I don't know. There's 2 different types of arm talent. There's Josh Allen, just holy cow, did he just throw that ball 85 yards? And then there's he rips the gloves when he because he throws the ball so hard into a tight window. He's got that kind of arm talent, not necessarily the 85 yards. He's a smaller guy. He's quick. He's not Lamar Jackson, but he's mobile. The issues with him are because he's a smaller guy, he kind of gets dinged up a little bit. He suffered with some broken ribs last season, and he played through it. He's a tough SOB, but you could tell he had broken ribs because a couple of times he threw that ball deep. It died, and it just fluttered up there and got picked off. Looked really bad against Notre Dame, which was a game I watched from a hotel room in Minneapolis with my dad, before I went to see the Vikings game. But I think Jalen Hall he would be my number one guy that I want the Vikings to go after.
So first concern that a lot of Vikings fans are probably going to say is he's going to get hurt a lot. Great. Who's the backup? Nick Mullins? I mean, Vikings fans have been, like it or not, spoiled. Kirk Cousins has missed one meaningful game since he came here. It was the, week 17 game at Green Bay last season. He had COVID. He missed one game. Every other start that has mattered, he has started. So that's just going to be something that Vikings fans are going to sneeze at a little bit. I will. I do want to. Okay.
I want to rebut that quickly and just say, I think that some of the injury risk, it's not like he's constantly like Andrew Booth, like put a big asterisk on him, like he gets injured. It's just when you're 6'1" or 6 foot even and only about 210 pounds, you're more likely to get dinged up. Also, I don't see Kevin O'Connell calling, let me enunciate, a lot of lead option for whoever the next quarterback is. I think that kind of gets phased out unless you have Lamar Jackson. So I think that would be able to put to bed, but it's still, I mean, he's a smaller guy, and so he would definitely have to learn the hey, how do you stay healthy, Coke? What's your secret? Because Cousins has he's got some type of holy grail that he drinks from to stay healthy.
Either that, or he's just, as he always says, on the Pat McAfee show. I guess I can't say always says, but he has always been absolutely strapped. Anyways, who is the upside comp for Jaren Hall, and who is the downside comp?
The downside comp to me is so easy. It is Zach Wilson. It is, you take the Brigham Young guy, he comes in and he just doesn't play well, and he doesn't pick up the speed of the NFL like you want him to, and all of a sudden he's an interception machine, and he's missing guys that are streaking with 20 yards of separation, and he just doesn't throw it to him because he got ruined in a year because he was so bad. And that's the downside, is that there's a chance that happens.
They even both wear headbands, so there's another comp.
Yep.
So what's the upside then? The
upside to me would have to be and I hate to do upside because I always go to the same 5 guys, but my God, it's he has curly hair, he kind of has a mullet. Sometimes I watch him play and I'm like, oh, that looks like a Patrick Mahomes type play. Well, he's running around and he's kind of playing, Brett Favre, if Brett Favre always made good decisions, both on and off the field. He's just making these throws where he's on the move, he evades a sack, he gets out into space, and then he finds a guy 15, 20 yards down the field who's just wide open because he had so much time that he created himself. So Russell Wilson would probably be another good one, who he's a little bit smaller, taken in the mid rounds, but that almost feels like a downside comp after the year that Russ Wilson had. But let's say prime Russell Wilson, where he was creating time and scrambling around before finally finding somebody. So I would say Seattle Russ Wilson would be his upside, and his downside would be Zach Wilson.
If you're the Vikings, you would take Seattle Russell Wilson. I think the Russell Wilson view has been tainted by the Denver year, but we have to be honest with ourselves. He was a quarterback that you never wanted to face because he was an absolute pain in the you-know-what to defend, because he just run around. Remember that playoff game, the freezing game where Blair Walsh missed the field goal? There was the snap over Wilson's head. He runs back, grabs the ball, somehow finds Tyler Lockett for a 50-yard gain or something like that.
Yep.
It was the most maddening play I've probably ever watched as a Vikings fan. That's the kind of stuff that Russell Wilson did in his prime. So yeah, if the Vikings got even Russell Wilson light, I think they'd be excited. So
I think that it's definitely you got to remember, I'm talking about 5th and 4th round picks here. I think the value is just so I think you got to take one every year, with quarterbacks. That's kind of my opinion, is you take somebody in the mid rounds every year, unless you take somebody high that is Pat Mahomes level, and then it's okay, well, we're not if Pat Mahomes gets injured, we're done. So we're gonna put it all on him. But yeah.
So tell me about someone that you just can't stand, that you would be just distraught if the Vikings picked.
It's easily Tanner McKee, and he's already been mocked to the Vikings 2 different times. And if they take Tanner McKee, I'm gonna jump off a bridge, and that's for legal reasons a joke. But my God, I don't understand why the NFL falls in love with 6'6" statuesque quarterbacks. I understand getting excited about Josh Allen because he had a cannon and he was so fast and he was a freak athlete and he was laying the truck stick down. Yeah, make him a top 10 pick. Tanner McKee, he has those string bean legs. He runs like a baby gazelle in that it's awkward, and he is kind of fast, but not fast enough to be a scrambler at the NFL level. And I just I don't know, maybe it's because the system that he was running at Stanford was not very good. It's difficult for me to fall in love with a guy like Tanner McKee, who his team wasn't very good in college. And on top of that, when I watch his tape, it's a lot of just drop back passing. And could he be good? In theory, yes. But I think he is a part of a dying breed of NFL quarterback, of the pocket passer that is a strict pocket passer. I think his NFL comp, it's Jared Goff. I think he is Jared Goff. He is like prototypical NFL quarterback that is kind of being phased out of the league, but can still win you some games. If the Vikings take Tanner McKee, it clearly means they didn't extend Cousins because he's going in the late first or early second. So they're not going to spend that draft capital and then let him sit the bench for 3 seasons or something. So it would clearly mean Cousins is out the door. We might win some games with him. I think that we have the same discussions year after year that we have about Cousins, about how you can't win with this style of quarterback, especially once you have to pay him. I just don't love him. I don't love him.
Well, and the reason why Cousins continues to at least, cue the Kirk wars, but work, is that he's been productive. He's a veteran. He's smart. He puts in the work. He grinds. He's done this for so long that he's able to play at a very good to, low end elite level at times.
Yeah.
And that's not where the league is going, though. So the reason Kirk Cousins works is because he's been doing it so well for so long. You're not going to want to go get sort of a, Jared Goff / Kirk Cousins comp in a draft where you're looking ahead to the future of the NFL, where it's, mobile, athletic quarterbacks who can make plays. It's just frankly not where you want to go.
I think new NFL is the statue quarterbacks. Oh, and I hate to say this because Vikings fans have a sick fetish for Joe Burrow, but it's Joe Burrow in that you can call quarterback draw on 3rd and 6, and he's fast enough that he can go get it. You just don't ask him to do that so much because he's better as a pure pocket passer. And I think that's the future of like a pocket passer, if you will. And Tanner McKee does not have Joe Burrow's athleticism, and that's saying something because Joe Burrow is not some freakazoid athlete like Josh Allen is. So I just don't love him. I don't know. There's no electricity there. I just not a fan. Not a fan of him.
We don't need another quarterback that, as much as I like Kirk Cousins, we don't need another Kirk Cousins. We need somebody who's going to bring a new, sort of flavor to the quarterback position. So let's close this one down with one more quarterback that you're excited about. If Jaren Hall's not on the table, if the Vikings are, let's just assume the Vikings don't trade any of their picks, even though I think we all kind of agree that there's going to be some trading down and that Kwesi's probably going to accumulate more choices as the day goes on. Let's just assume, they get to the 4th or the 5th round. They missed out on Jaren Hall, but they want to take a quarterback. Who would you like to see them take?
I'm going to cheat because I have to talk about 2 guys, and I'm going to try and condense both of them very quickly because I know we're over time. But I really am slowly starting to get the same feelings I had for Jalen Hurts about Max Duggan, and it makes me sick to my stomach because I didn't like Max Duggan all year, and now I'm watching him. He just has like an intensity about him and like this like passion for the game. And I think I told you this a while ago that like I watched his post-game press conference after he lost the Pac-12 championship game, and he was sobbing because he wanted to win a championship for this school, blah, blah, blah. I'm starting to fall in love with him. That's his upside comp is Jalen Hurts, kind of mobile guy who can just power run the ball, put his shoulder down and lay a truck stick if he needs to. But also he does throw an NFL style ball in that he can throw the ball deep. He can put some zip on it. So he would need a lot of refinement. I don't hate it. There's a guy out of Houston whose name is Clayton Tune. I am a big fan of his. He has prototypical size. He's not Josh Allen athletic, but he's not Tanner McKee slow. He does have the mobility. He has the pocket presence, which is a difficult thing to like really read. He gets out of sacks. He does the right things in the pocket to get out of them. And all of these guys, I should say, they're not run-first quarterbacks. They do, if they escape a sack, they immediately get their eyes back up and they look for the guy down the field, which I think is, you can't play in the NFL if you don't do that.
No.
Tune does that. He struggles a little bit with deep accuracy. Again, he would be a heavy project, but I trust Kevin O'Connell to take any of the guys that I just listed and turn them into, take a lump of coal and crush it into a diamond. I'm really starting to love Max Duggan. It's getting unhealthy. I've watched the tape a lot, trying to just pick it apart, and I'm like, every time I'm like, oh yeah, this has been an awful game. The last drive of the game, he pulls some magic out of his hat, and I'm like, how do you not fall in love with this? How do you not fall in love with this kid? So I don't know. He might not even be there because Jerry Jones is liable to take him in the second round because Jerry Jones is a madman at this point. But we'll see what happens. Those are my two guys, though.
If Vikings fans remember, a Houston quarterback of yore brought the Vikings to the NFC Championship game in 2017 by the name of Case Keenum.
Yes, he did.
So there's a little bit of
that was so different. I thought that the first time I watched his tape, I was like, Case, it does the they both went to Houston, and I was like, Case Keenum was 6 foot even and was just throwing up prayer balls, and Clayton Tune is 6'5", and he's a big guy, and they're just so different looking. But I do love it is fun trivia.
So the last thing I'll say here, and then I'll let you close us down for the week, is if I'm a Vikings fan, two things. I'm okay if I'm a Vikings fan. I am a Vikings fan. Two things that I think I'm okay with as a fan if the Vikings do decide to draft a quarterback. One, I would like to see, from my perspective, a short extension on Cousins to give the next guy a little bit of runway. I'm not asking for a 4-year extension. I'm not asking to make Kirk Cousins a quarterback till he's 42 or anything ridiculous like that. But just a little bit of runway to give, whether it's a guy they draft this year or next year or the year after that, whatever, to be able to have time to develop under Cousins so that you don't have to chuck him into the fire right away. And, even if Clayton Tune's a project or Jaron Hall needs time to refine some things, or I can't remember the other guy that you mentioned.
Max Duggan.
Max Duggan. Yeah, he would be, if you're going to use the Jalen Hurts thing as a comp, that's almost a perfect comp because Hurts needed about a year and a half or so to kind of figure it out, and look at him now. So obviously that there's no guarantee that happens with whoever the Vikings take, but development years are fine. They're honestly preferable when it comes to some of these guys. You might not need the Aaron Rodgers 3 years of tutelage under Brett Favre, but if you give him a year, give him 2 years, there's a ton of upside that can happen, because then you still have 2 or 3 years on their rookie contract to let them show what they have. And so that's point number one. Long way of saying I'm okay with the Vikings, if I'm a fan, taking a sort of project. The other thing, I want Minnesota to take a quarterback, whether it's this year or next, to take one that has a higher level of athletic ability than we've had in Minnesota. We've had Kirk Cousins, we've had, God bless him, Case Keenum and Sam Bradford and Teddy Bridgewater and Sage Rosenfels and Gus Farrar.
You forgot Matt Castle.
Matt Castle. 40-year-old Brett Favre. We've had some decent quarterbacks over the last, 15 years, but we haven't had a guy who can run around and extend a play, really. Favre sort of did, but he was, geriatric at the time. So I would love to see the Vikings sort of fully embrace the new era and take a step into the modern NFL and get a quarterback who can run around, extend plays, and, even occasionally have, games where he rushes for 50 yards. So that would be just sort of the dream scenario for really any quarterback the Vikings pick. Jordan, I'll let you close us down. Final thoughts, sponsors, and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Make sure that you shop Unified. Make sure that you follow the show on Twitter at LTB Vikings. Follow my man Will at Will Bad Lose, the best Twitter handle in all of football. I do want to say this really quickly. Check out Vikings Territory and Purple PTSD and the Bad Loser blog. Had to get that in. I want to say this really quickly. I would not be shocked if the Vikings don't touch quarterback this year. But if they don't touch quarterback this year, next year, I say this every season, and so it's not a thing, but like next year has to be the year then, right? Because Coke will be going into like 36, 37, and we're getting to a point where you can only hang on to Kirk Cousins so long. And are we really going to be one of those? Like, are we going to be the Giants who held on to Eli Manning probably 2 or 3 years too long? I would argue that was warranted because he bought you 2 Super Bowls. If Kirk Cousins wins a Super Bowl, give him a 15-year contract and pay him until he's 50. I don't care, but like, until he does that, we have to be talking about potentially replacing him. I know I laid out guys that are, maybe not the most exciting things in the world, and they might end up being practice squad XFL superstars for all we know. But I think that you get somebody in the building, you start having, those conversations, and if you don't do it this year, next year it's like a trade up and take a blue chip guy, because next year's quarterback class looks deep. Like deep. And so I think it's going to be exciting no matter what ends up happening. But we didn't even talk about the Super Bowl this week. Really quickly, do you have a Super Bowl pick? I just want to on the record.
I gotta be frank. I don't really care about the Super Bowl this year. I will say, I'm going to go Kansas City. I think Patrick Mahomes and his, one-legged dog and pony show, I think they're going to pull it off. I don't think the Eagles will be able to, I think the biggest weakness for the Eagles is an inexperienced coach and an inexperienced quarterback.
Yeah.
Everything else, the Eagles have a great roster, great team. Hurts is a great player, obviously. But Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, I mean, it's hard to bet against them.
It really is. I'm going with the Eagles because I think like the last 7 or 8 years, the Super Bowl champion has beaten the Minnesota Vikings at some point. And the Chiefs didn't play us this year, and the Eagles did. And the Eagles beat us, so I see that trend continuing, and that's the only reason I'm picking them. Thank you guys for staying. Sorry that we went late, but thanks for tuning in. And as always, I'll go ahead and get out of your hair with a skull, y'all.